Welcome back behind the scenes at Evernote, still the working from home edition. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about Tasks, a feature we've just released and is made available to all of you in early access. We've had Tasks in private beta for the last couple of months, but before that we've been using Tasks inside the company since late last year, working with it as it's evolved into the shape that you see today. I thought it would make sense for us to talk with one of my teammates, Michelle, who's been using Tasks for a while and has adapted it into her workflow. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Ian.
Thanks for joining us today. Tell me, I'm curious to understand, what did you first think when you saw Tasks?
Well, I've been an Evernote user for a long time, and I use Evernote primarily to manage all the things that I have to get done week to week. So when I got access to tasks, I was very excited. At first, I thought it was going to be really simple, just to take something that I used to use a checklist for and turn it into a task. But it turned out tasks has so much more to offer.
That makes sense because Tasks actually changes a lot of things. So maybe it makes sense for us to walk through how you used to do things, and then we can talk about how Tasks has actually changed that for you.
All right. So what I've done is I've recreated a note that looks very, very similar to the notes that I use on a regular weekly basis. Um, and this is obviously before tasks. So you can see what I would do is create this one centralized view of everything that I needed to get done. And then I'd use the note formatting and different techniques to sort of indicate which things need to be done when. As the week went on, I would add new things, maybe as a checkbox, maybe as a checklist. I'd make sure that I have the content that helps me make the decision. Sometimes I even have deadlines that I need to keep track of. Um, and it's really easy. At the end of each week, I'd set aside some time and I'd go through, review the note, create a new note from this, and then clean it all up, get rid of everything that I had already done, and set myself up fresh for the next week.
So that makes a lot of sense. I do something pretty similar to this, only I do it on a monthly basis. Maybe that's just because, of the kinds of things I tackle based on my role. But I'm curious, how did Tasks make this better for you?
Well, the first thing that it did is it automatically created that unified view of all the things that I have to get done and put it together into one view for me. Real easy. So now it doesn't matter what note it was created in, whether it's created in my weekly note that I am using every single day, or whether I create a task in a note from a meeting that I'm attending. It'll show up in this view, and I don't have to keep track of where it was or what it was about. Even better, if you're somebody who's super deadline driven like I am, you can view those tasks by due date. And so instead of needing to worry about carrying tasks over from week to week to week, if something changes, if I don't get something done, I can literally just click it, change the due date, make sure I add a reminder or a couple reminders, which we also let you do, and everything's done. The last thing that happens that I really do like is that it's really easy to go ahead and turn anything into a task. So, for example, if I didn't get this prepping for my all hands done and I'm thinking I need to do it next week, I can just put the text anywhere and then simply with the keyboard shortcut, Alt T on a Windows machine, turn it into a task.
So I understand those are the things about Tasks that have sort of changed the way you think about organizing your to dos. How has that made your week actually better?
Well, if you take a step back from the mechanics and you think about what I was doing, I was manually needing to create a centralized view of everything that needs to get done. And Tasks has actually offloaded that entire process from me. So instead of me being the process, Evernote is sort of like my partner in the process. Um, what it's done is the 30 minutes that I used to have to reserve at the end of every week to set myself up for the next week, I'm sure you'll be happy to know. I spend that 30 minutes actually working on the things that I need to get done instead of mechanically copying and pasting and duplicating and cleaning up my note. So it's been a big, big help for me.
That's pretty awesome. So I just want to say in passing, looking at sort of your notes and the way you do things and how things have changed with tasks, I like that you're using dark mode. Looks pretty good.
I love dark mode so much. Um, it was one of those features that our customers requested for quite a while, top requested feature, which actually makes me think I should ask you a question myself. Ian, I spent a lot of time on the forums and I see the level of engagement, which is incredible. And I do see a lot of really cool ideas for how people would use tasks. And everybody always wants to know what's next.
Well, you know, if you've watched behind the scenes before, one of the things that you know is I'm pretty good at staying grounded in the present and try to stay out of making a lot of prognostications about the future. But I do think, you know, there are some things here that we can say with a lot of confidence. The first is that tasks, we think tasks is a big deal. In fact, we think tasks is pretty much as big a deal as notes are. And that means that we think there's the kind of future for us to do work, to do improvements, to continue to make it more powerful. We think that there's years of work ahead of us in making tasks better. The second thing I would say is that, you know, when you look at the beta forums, and you know, I've been through and I've read actually every single post in the beta forums, and it's great to see that level of engagement. And it's very clear that you see that there's some people for whom, just like you, tasks has already changed their lives, and they're all ready to embrace tasks exactly as it is today. And there are other people for whom they're super enthusiastic about tasks, but they're missing that one feature that would allow them to actually let go of the task management application they're using today and move their entire world into Evernote. Now, that one feature isn't the same for everybody. For some people, you know, it's recurring tasks. For other people, it's being able to, you know, say which date a task was completed on, so they can go back and look at that history. For still other people, it might be the ability to have structured tasks. You can have a task and some subtasks. The list is long. If you go and read the beta forums, there's a lot of asks for things we might do. And a lot of those things, you know, make a lot of sense to us, and definitely are things that we believe are in the future of tasks at Evernote. I'm not going to go through and kind of go line by line and talk about what they are. I will say that, you know, software is hard, and software takes a while. And in order to make something that is not just the implementation of a feature, but the implementation of a feature in a way that makes sense in Evernote and that lives naturally in an Evernote world, sometimes that takes us, you know, some time to think through it and really think about what that means. But this is not to say that we're not going to be doing that work. We are absolutely going to be doing that work. Tasks is now a fundamental part of Evernote. And just like every 2 or 3 weeks we try to make Evernote better, every 2 to 3 weeks we're trying to make tasks better as part of Evernote. And over the months that come and over the quarters that come, you are going to see tasks get better and better and better, not just on its own, but in all the ways that it works with all of the other parts of Evernote today to create this single, completely seamless experience in which you can move between remembering and accomplishing at will. That is our goal, and that is absolutely where we're going to take the product.
That sounds fantastic. I cannot wait to see what's ahead for tasks and how we prioritize some of those requests and get my own requests into that queue. But one of the top requests we do see, I'm going to ask you about it. Will there be a home widget for tasks?
You're not going to let me go without making a commitment, are you?
I'm not.
So I think one of the things that's probably useful for me to say is that over the course of the last 2.5 years, we've had a lot of time to think. And we haven't just been working on rebuilding Evernote. We've also been thinking about the future. We've been thinking about what it really means to be an extension of your brain and what the future of Evernote should look like. And so we've built really not just a roadmap, but a view of what the system we think looks like out into the future. And in that view, all of the pieces aren't individual pieces, they're pieces that work together. Yes, they stand on their own. Yes, they have value, but yes, they work together. So when we launched Home, Home was pretty cool. Home is a new dashboard, a good way to start your day in Evernote. But when we built Home, we knew we were building tasks, and we knew that as much as Home makes sense just from a notes context, it makes even more sense when you think of Home as a single dashboard that is both focused on remembering and on accomplishing, that both looks at your notes and at your tasks. So will there be a tasks widget on Home? Absolutely. We're working on it right now. It's a part of the overall vision we have, not just for Home, not just for tasks, but for this system we are starting to build in Evernote that looks forward into what the future of being a part of your external brain actually means for Evernote. I'm not actually going to answer any more questions like that because you're going to get me into trouble. So instead, I think what it makes sense for me to do is to thank you for actually spending time sharing with us your workflow the way it used to be, your workflow now, how it works, and how Tasks has actually freed you and given you time back every week. A 30-minute time refund every week is something that's extremely valuable. So thank you for sharing that with us.
And thank you for sharing everything, Ian. It's been a pleasure.
I hope, everybody, that you've enjoyed this episode of Behind the Scenes at Evernote. Once again, the Working From Home edition. We look forward to talking to you again soon with the next set of things we have to talk about. Take care.